Hello. First, I would like to thank the organizing committee and the Imaginary for giving me the opportunity to present you the mathematical journal Quadrature. It's a French publication. Of course, it's very different from the medias we've seen before this morning because it's much more classical. It's paper print, it's quarterly, but it was created in 1989 by a teacher, Jean-Pierre Boudin, who is now retired. He lives near Marseille. And I think that the fact we are still alive proves that there is a public for this kind of media. Well, our public is very diversified, but mostly people who like to enter the stuff, to enter in the equations and to really practice maths. That's rather different from the public we've seen before. Well, we publish original math articles and we have three regular rubrics. Text en question, it's a rubric about the history of maths, Problems Corner, and a rubric of surveys. I would like to emphasize that it's possible to make interactive, to act interactively with the readers, even with a paper. But as the journal is a quarterly, of course the delay is much more important. So in this rubrics, for the history of mathematics, in every issue there is a question, and the readers have to make inquiries, to look in ancient texts, and their contributions are published in the next issue. It's the same for the Problems Corner with Olympiad problems. This is the rubric Text en question, and here you may see James Abram Garfield. He was a president of the United States of America, and he had found a new proof of Pythagoras' theorem. So here the question was about this proof, and the readers had to find what Garfield had done really. Well, the poor guy was shot 1 month after he became president, so I hope it is not because of this proof. This is the forum where we put some news with somebody easy to recognize, and this was for the 20th birthday of the second birth of the Poincaré Institute. Well, I hope I'm not going to be fired of the conference after this slide. Why only paper print? Because we think that many people prefer to have really paper in hands, and then to look at the web. And there is an American study about books, which is very recent, and says that college students like print books in libraries more than e-books. And the other reason is that paper communication allows to go further and deeper in the equation, the mathematical stuff. Our journal is published in French, so it can be an advantage and at the same time a disadvantage. While the French-speaking zone is rather big, but of course not so big as the English-speaking zone. But recently, things seem to change a little because we received papers in English from foreign authors, and if these papers are retained, they will be, of course, translated in French because we want to stay a French review. Referencement, Not important. Well, it's quite impossible even for paper to ignore the web because readers like to know what is published. They may want to consult our databases, and the authors have to download templates to write according to the standards of Quadrature. So this can be done on a website, which is also a sales site, and we also run a blog, Quadrature Review Blogspot. Well, it is very interesting to run a blog at the same time, because with a quarterly, it's quite impossible to fit the actuality in mathematics, and also it is a way to test topics. For instance, you can look how the visitors react to a certain topic, to a certain post, and if there's a lot of reactions, you may think that it's possible to develop this in your paper issue. And also, we have a partnership with the site Images des Mathématiques, of the CNRS, and sometimes we publish at the same time paper on the web and in our paper issue, but the articles are not exactly the same. It is possible in the journal to go further in the equations, and here on the website they will emphasize the pictures and the videos. Well, this is a screenshot of our blog, and I don't know if you recognize this guy. It is a writer, a romantic writer, François-René de Chateaubriand, and we made a series of posts about Chateaubriand because before he became a politician and a romantic writer, he wanted to be an officer in the Royal Navy. I mean, the French Royal Navy, of course. At this time, to enter the Navy, you had to pass an exam with a lot of maths. And there was a terrible examinator who was Etienne Bezou. I don't know if you know this mathematician. He's known for a result about coprime, numbers, polynomials, and ideals. Well, so Chateaubriand had to work in Bezou's books, and he wrote this souvenir in memories in Mémoire d'outre-tombe. That's why the post is Mémoire d'outre-mat. And it may seem strange, but in fact, this series is because of the first peak here, and it was much more appreciated. Another interesting thing for us, for the blog, is that it is seen in other countries, and not only in the French-speaking zone. And there is a recent evolution. This is for May of this year. You see many people came from Germany, many from Ukraine, and only after from France, Russia, and the United States. We try to find new readers. It's always important. And so we have sometimes to change our topics, because we have ancient readers who are always interested in very classical math papers with title, abstract, section, theorem, proof, and things like this, mainly about theory of numbers, Euclidean geometry. But we try to find a new public with new topics, closer to applied maths, for instance. And this is not very far from imaginary, because on this cover you recognize a glacier, and of course it was an issue made with Guillaume Jouvet, who also worked with imaginary. But there is a big difference, is that the glacier is a French one. Well, it was a joke, sorry. Well, and this one was made with Oliver Labs, and it is his surface. And you can find this picture on the Gallery of Imaginary too. Well, another example with INRIA, you may look at the hair of this character, this woman, in fact, and the subject was how to approach the structure of the hair with circular helix. So it is a paper wrote with Florence Bertel-Decoubs, and she works in a research team about computer graphics. And she developed a new algorithm, and they join pieces of circular helix to make the hair follow the movement when the girl is dancing. You can find a little movie on the web about this. So it is an example of an article where classical geometry joins a very modern subject, which is computer graphics. Of course, if you change the topics, you also have to change the shape of the article, and you must use modern theories of science journalism, mainly hyperstructures. It is to replace the classical math article by, let's say, a big file with many entries. And if you want to know more about this, I can recommend you this paper, but it is in French. It says « L'hyperstructure, un mode privilégié de présentation des événements scientifiques ». And it means that hyperstructure is the best way to present scientific events in the press. It's very interesting. For instance, something very simple. I think this is a paper of Guillaume Jouvet. If you see there is variational principle, and the reader may be not interested in the space where the functions live, but if you want to know more, you just have to read here the insert about Sobolev spaces, but he's not obliged to. And he may also choose his entry in the article. For instance, probably here, the reader won't enter by the abstract, but he will enter this by this picture. And look at the giraffe and the elephant. And what this paper was made with Damien Romer, who is also in INRIA, and it is about Stokes' theorem, in fact. Well, you can do some bodybuilding, you will be impressed, but here there is a bulge, yes, and here it's thinner, but you may see that the volume of my arm stays constant. So it is possible to do some movie of moving hands or moving animals, and to be realistic, you need you can maintain the volume of let's say a leg or the hand constant, and for this you use Stokes' theorem. It gives you an integral which has to stay constant while the computer makes the calculation, and of course it's in discrete space. A very important thing for us is young people, young readers and young writers too. We have developed a collaboration with Institut de Mathématiques de Toulouse with the Fermat Junior Prize, which is the junior version of the Fermat Prize, of course. And we do some advertising from the prize. We participate to the jury. That can be a big job. And the winners are published in a quarterly. And for most of these young authors, it's their first math paper. And we also publish young authors from other countries. For instance, in Switzerland, they have examen de maturité in the French-speaking area of Switzerland. And some projects are very interesting. We also have a collaboration with Math Engine in France, And Matlan is an European project linked with Erasmus. It means learning maths and languages at the same time. Of course, we also publish best projects, and the young people are most often very happy to be published, to see that people are interested in their work to such an extent. And for example, this is the shape of an article about inflated sets, it's geometry, and you may see here the group, a group of students who wrote the paper with their researcher and their teacher. Well, I was almost finished. This is the conclusion, but for the conclusion, I think you have recognized this curve. It is the curve from François Perry. It is the anaglyph of Venus, and maybe it's better here. Well, this curve was treated to retain the attention of readers. This work was made by Joe Slace. I think it's you know him because he has worked with Etienne Gis for the film Dimension, and this is also on the website of Imaginary. You can download the film there. And you know, he takes the curve of François Perry, and he put it in a spatial environment, and this was for cover. For the conclusion, I would say that this was on number 100, and of course I hope it will continue, and if anybody here has some proposition for collaboration, I will be very grateful, and thank you.
Any questions for the speaker?
I had some questions about the sort of your economic model and not working. I had some questions about the economic model for this journal and how you handle editing, acquisition, and reviewing of papers.
Yes. This journal, I told you, it was created in 1989, and it went through some crisis because at a certain moment it was a property of a group, a press group, which is ADP Sciences, and they thought that it was not very interesting for them. It was a lot of problems for few money, so they sell the journal to another independent group, and they only kept their medical journals. But now there is a little structure which is, whose name is SEDIM, ruled by an ancient teacher who is very passionate about press. This man, for instance, he likes rocks. I don't know the English word for geology. Geology. And he has also, in the same group than Quadrature, a little magazine about this. And we work together. It's a very, very small structure. And the journal is made in Morocco by ePress, and it is printed in France, in Nancy, and then distributed.
And is it self-sustaining?
Yes, it's self-sustaining, but not enough to, for example, to pay myself. I work as a teacher during the day, and during the night I do it.
And maybe I missed it at the beginning. How many subscribers do you have?
We are running about 1,200 subscribers, but there is institutional subscribers, because you can find in France Quadrature in almost all libraries, all universities, in fact, so it is difficult to precisely evaluate the number of readers.
Other questions? If there's no further questions, let's thank Jean-Paul again.